everyone, I'm Allie, and I'm going to show you how to properly put on a crimp tube, flatten it out, put on a crimp cover, do some layering of some fun silver and gold beads, and give you details about some beading wire. So if you need a little help to get basic beading started, or just to make a fun, all you can wear everyday necklace using some Athenacast beads, go ahead and look below the video for links to exactly which ones I'm going to be using. Gather up some pliers and materials, and let's get started. So this video is a very simple technique video. And what I want to show you is how you can use basic materials and metals to really make the piece using some crimp tubes. And we're going to be going over the different sizes of crimp tubes and then how to finish off the ends nicely. I'm creating a 3-strand necklace using some of our tube beads. We have a bunch of different sizes and styles and everything, along with some mirrored rounds in the Athenacast. I'm creating this in a floating style that there's space in between, and using for this 49-strand wire. Now, why use 49-strand wire versus 7-strand? 49 is going to be the best flexibility. There are 49 small pieces of stainless steel that are wrapped around one another to create this 49-strand cable, which is then coated with a nylon coating on top of it. This is going to make sure that if you kink it or if you turn it, it goes back to its normal form. I'm using the beading cable in 3 different strands along with some crimp tubes. Now I have 2 different sizes of crimp tubes. One, you're like, I don't even see this. This is going to be the copper crimp tube in a 1.5 millimeter. We're also going to be using some 2x2 crimp tubes in silver, along with some wire guards or wire guardians. I have some crimp covers to show you how to use those, and then some jump rings for the end, keeping it very simple, using a ball and hitch clasp because I love putting these on and off. For this, you're just going to need a chain nose plier and a wire cutter to cut your wire off the strand. I've already done 2 of these just because I've got 3 to go. And what I'm doing for my first one is 5 sets of my necklace, which is going to be about 20 inches here, 5 sets of my necklace, creating a station in the wire that is a tube, 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 4 and 2. On the ends of the tube, I'm holding them in place with my crimp covers, and there's those little tiny copper crimp beads in between each. On the first strand, I've separated it out to those 20 inches and used 5 sets of those. My second strand, I separated it out and I used 4 of those because I wanted to sit a little offset. The last one, keeping it simple, I'm just going to use 1 of those. So the first thing I want to do is cut about 24 inches of my cable here. Put my cover back on so it doesn't go awry. Do a nice cut. Put that cable to the side. And now I'm going to go to the center of the cable because this one's just going to be one that sits in the middle between these other 2 strands. In the middle, I'm going to add my first bead, which is my 6 millimeter faceted round. Then I'm going to add my 4 millimeter faceted mirror rounds on each side. And I love these. They just connect to the light so well. I'm going to add one of my tubes here. And again, if you need any details of these, go ahead and look below the video in the description. It'll give the exact size of them. And I'm going to let that all fall down to the base of my beading cable. From here, I'm going to grab my two tiny little copper crimp tubes and put them on either side. These little copper crimp tubes will grip onto the sides and make sure that this is not moving along the piece. So the first thing that I'm going to do is flatten out that crimp tube. Let's bring our camera in a little closer so you can see that nice and in action. From here, I'm going to go out just a tiny little bit, separating out my crimp tube along for my piece and flatten it out with that chain nose plier. I'm going to grab my wire guard and do this my crimp cover and do this first side before crimping down on the other one. I'm going to tuck that crimp into the crimp cover. I'm using a 4mm. You can use a 3mm with this as well. You can see that it almost looks like Pac-Man's jaws, that it has the opening, and that crimp tube is going to fit right inside. The 1mm are great because the opening in the center doesn't open back up the crimp bead if you by accident squish it the wrong way. 2x2s, you want to make sure that you're getting nice and flat. So if Pac-Man is eating, the pancake is flat within his mouth. And we're going to squash down slowly, getting in and keeping that rounded shape on my crimp tube, or my crimp cover. You want your crimp cover just to look like another silver little ball on the design. I'm going to go to the opposite side now and do the exact same thing, moving just a little bit off, room for the crimp cover, squashing down, grabbing my crimp cover, and once again, closing it up to look like a round bead. And you can use nylon jaw pliers for these. You can use crimp pliers. They have a little section in the back that gets that nice rounded look. And there you have it on your piece. Now, if I want to continue to create, I'll leave an inch space like I've done in the past and crimp and crimp and crimp. I'm going from a 5-strand to a 4-strand down to the 1-strand that's going to hang in the middle. So as I bring the camera out now, what we've got to do is measure. I'm going to be measuring and finishing off each strand with a wire guard and a bigger crimp, a 2x2 crimp. Why are we switching crimp sizes? Because I cannot get this 49 strand 0.046mm or 0.018 inch size back through the 1.5mm crimps. Those are just ideal to go inside the crimp covers or to go 1 strand on the wire. From here, I'm going to go back to my necklace and I'm creating a little bit of a layered necklace. So this first one here, I want to be a little bit shorter, about 19 inches, and I'm going to put on my crimp covers, or my crimp, my wire guards, excuse me, with my crimps. I'm going to take my crimp tube, this is the 2x2 one, and let it drop down ever so slightly on the wire. Put on my wire guard. The wire guard acts to protect the wire and the clasp from rubbing on the wire. You're going to go back down through that wire guard. These are used a lot in bead weaving as well. And then you're going to tuck this back into the crimp tube. You can see how when you push it up here, it gives it a nice professional look that will link on to our jump ring. When you are flattening this out, you can put another crimp cover on here in the back so it doesn't rub. It's kind of up to you. First thing I want to do is measure and make sure that I have the correct distance. I'm actually going to bring this down just a tiny bit further, holding that there, and pulling my wire down ever so slightly. Once you crimp, it's the same deal with the crimp tube that you're going to flatten it out. This time you want to make sure that your wires underneath are sitting side by side. You're going to go into your crimp tube and just flatten it out. As you're squashing, you want to make sure that you don't also squash down through the wire guard. Here at the end, prior to putting on the crimp cover, you want to go in and trim that down so that wire ends below the cover. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to go to my 4-strand. And my 4-strand here, I'm going to measure so it sits just below the 1st strand. So the 2nd strand here is going to sit just below the 1st strand. So that 1st strand is going to sit interior side like that, having it an inch shorter on each side. So we did this first one here about 18. This one's going to be about 20, and the next one is going to be 17, 19, and then 21 inches to the wire guard. Once you have all your strands completed, you want to make sure that you put them on the jump rings in the order in which they're going to sit. So I'm going to open up my first jump ring here, and this is going to be my interior strand that I'm going to put onto the jump ring first. After the interior strand, I'm going to get the strand that has 4, and then after the strand that has 4, I'm going to put the strand that has 5. Put on your next jump ring, which is going to be the one that connects to your clasp, and then close up the jump ring that you currently have open. On the opposite side, you're going to do the exact same order. So sitting on your clasp here, I'm going to kind of hold it up, let that fall down. And on the opposite side, do the same thing. So when I'm looking at it, The interior one with 1 is going to go first. Opening up the jump ring. Interior first, followed by the one with 4, followed by the one with 5. Close that up. Oh, I forgot to put the jump ring on. That's okay. You're going to open up the jump ring, opening it, pulling it to the side like that. Grab onto that jump ring, making sure that the order is still correct. Put on your clasp, close up your clasp, going past where you think it's going to snap back, and then closed, and that'll spring back a little bit for you. And then the same thing on the opposite side, going in and getting the jump ring here that has nothing attached to it. Go in here, pull that to the top. As we kind of let our wires lay down here. And you can make this even more strands if you want to. Lots of things that you can do. Open it up, grab your necklace here, and put it on the opposite side. That's it. Super simple techniques to go in and make a fun layered necklace that when worn, and I'll show you that worn, is going to sit wonderfully. It looked like a really, really high-end design. Again, you can go up further with the design. I like to keep it a little bit floating and freeform. It's up to you how you want to create. Lots of different options. Just wanted to show you that 1.5 millimeter crimp tube, how to close the crimp covers, and then how to attach all of those to some wire guards and put them onto the clasp. Thanks so much for joining me to create this silver and gold floating necklace. You can do so many different layers and functions and uses for this. You can do one single layer, keep it on with a chain. You can have them go on top of each other, pull them down separately, and have them go in lengths. So it's really fun to create kind of these layered necklaces that sit one inside of one another. And because of the method that you used with the wire guards, you can actually take them on or off, or even attach them to a lobster on each side too, depending on what you want to wear for the day. Hopefully this helped you get some of those basic techniques that you may be missing. And remember, if you need any materials, they are underneath the video in the description. As always, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Thanks so much for watching this silver and gold floating necklace, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.